Good morning, and welcome to online worship with the First Parish of Sudbury Unitarian Universalist. There is a button below this window that enables you to receive the order of worship, so please click on it to follow along. Our meeting house has been a gathering place for our evolving congregation for over 380 years. To ensure the health and well-being of our members and friends, we have moved online for the time being, while we hold our meeting house in our hearts and minds as an anchor to our commitment and faith with one another. Wherever or however we gather, we endeavor to create a space where all are welcome, whether one is a longtime member or if you just found your way here this morning. Each and all of you are encouraged to safely bring your whole self to this forum, all of your respective beliefs, identities, gladness, and sorrows. Leave nothing about yourself behind. We are so happy that you are here with us. Our opening reading this morning is by Vern Barnett. It's called Earth Day. Infinite Spirit, sometimes called grandfather, grandmother, Father Sky, Earth Mother, Creator, we gather to praise your creation, to honor the swimmers and crawlers, the four-leggeds and the winged ones. We pray to know more deeply that we are in the garden where every plant and animal and speck of dust is a living prayer. We pray for humility, not to humble ourselves before presidents or priests, but before the ants and trees. Great Spirit, let us remember, it is not how we talk, but how we walk. Please join me in our unison chalice lighting. Blessed is the sky and all that is warm and filled with light. Blessed is the air and all that is open and free. Blessed is the earth and all that is steady and firm. Blessed is the sea and all that is hidden and deep. This morning, I share with you two readings, both by 12-year-olds, which is kind of interesting, and both from Maryland. The first is by Avery Fisher. I found these in a wonderful Washington Post Kids section of the paper, so I share them. The first is called Earth. A lovely place that we call home with all we want and need, a planet we hurt and take things from, is failing at an increasing speed. With water so we stay alive, air so we can breathe. It may be hard, but if we try, think of all the good we can achieve. Mother Nature nurtures us. Now let's return the love. Let's show her that we care so much and work to clean the air above. It's shameful our polluting crimes. It's clear our home feels hurt. But if we put in effort at times, we can heal our earth. The second reading is from Lily Fisher. It's called Treasure. Treasure can be pieces of gold, a fountain that makes you never grow old. Can be achievements like going to the moon, can be knowledge or a magical rune. But perhaps the greatest treasure of all is one little sapling, ever so small. So stop the plastic and the CO2 and find ways to do something new. Something that treats the earth with care, that won't clog up oceans or pollute the air. Love that sapling, help it grow tall, and you'll have saved the greatest treasure of all. Happy Earth Day. Week, month, year. Let's celebrate. Just keep celebrating. And I invite you to enjoy that celebration and our incredible habitat. I know a lot of us might feel like hamsters right now a little bit in our little habitats, but if we look out our windows, we go for walks, we see the amazing and miraculous planet that we live on, Earth. It's been far more than 50 years since we, humankind, have looked up and noticed how the Industrial Revolution from 1760 to 1840 has changed this planet in stunning ways. Initially, the changes that took place were considered good and important progress for humanity as a whole, affecting transportation and heating and lighting and agriculture and manufacturing. Steam, gas, and electricity brought us so much, especially control. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, we fell a bit out of balance. With the help of energy and machines, our forebears developed and continued to develop beyond humankind's need and our capacity to sustain. Little thought about how progress was changing our world beyond prospering was considered over the years. The rallying cry of more is better became humankind's consumeristic mantra, and production always seemed to fall short of the needs of industry, profit, and greed. The health of the planet and humankind seemed far away from people's bedazzled minds. One could not imagine that these helpful new inventions might change our lives to the point of endangering our very survival. Who would have thought it? Many of us have lost our old ways and are dependent on a system, when it comes right down to it, that is unsustainable. Back in the day, one had but to walk in the woods to be touched by our Mother's majesty. The wilderness of nature, or the wildness of nature, was close at hand, but this too continues to change. Resources are needed, grazing land and food to be planted. Someday, and I really hope this doesn't happen, in the not so distant future, it may be considered a luxury to have one's senses filled with the wildness of nature in a way that speaks to our animal selves and is grounding. Nature provides us with a place of balance and mindfulness outside of our cultivated environs. It is in the wild that humankind feels most alive and connected to all that is thriving around us. But unless we demand, work for, and ensure the wildness of nature, we may lose it before we realize it's even gone. This planet may survive climate change, but it will be changed beyond recognition. It has already been changed, but so much is still at stake. Awakened by the 1960s. If y'all remember the 1960s, right? Maybe not all of us. The first Earth Day took place in 1970, 50 years ago, when groups that had been fighting individually for decades against oil spills, polluting factories and power plants, raw sewage, toxic dumps, pesticides, freeways, the loss of wilderness, and the extinction of wildlife, united on Earth Day around these shared common values. Earth Day, 1970, achieved a rare political alignment, enlisting support from both Republicans and Democrats, rich and poor, urban dwellers and farmers, business and labor leaders. By the end of 1970, the first Earth Day led to the creation of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the passage of other first-of-their-kind environmental laws, including the National Environmental Education Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Care Act, and the Clean Air Act. 2 years later, Congress passed the Clean Water Act. A year after that, Congress passed the Endangered Species Act, and soon after, the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. It's a lot of acts. These laws have protected millions of men, women, and children from disease and death, and have protected hundreds of species from extinction. It seems even more important now in 2020 to see and acknowledge just how out of balance our world has continued to become, and to raise the level of concern for and commitment to the care of our home. Maybe this is a time to ignore the mouthpieces of industry, the call of acquisition, and instead bring our lives back into a place of balance, where we realize that we need less, hence we acquire and consume less. We have the time right now to imagine a different way of being, and I wonder if it could be possible for us to be truly changed by this at-home pandemic experience. I personally believe, as did Henry David Thoreau, that it is our willingness to be mindful of the details of nature that will bring us around to what is most important in living this life. It was 2 years after Thoreau spent time at Walden. His time was 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days, that he would decide to change the focus of his life in its entirety. In the fall of 1849, he chose to set up a new daily regime, just out of the bat. He just did it. Described in the Atlantic Monthly as, in the afternoons, Thoreau went for long walks, equipped with an array of instruments: his hat for specimen collecting, a heavy book to press plants, a spyglass to watch birds, his walking stick to take measurements, and small scraps of paper for jotting down notes. Mornings and evenings were now dedicated to serious study, including reading scientific books. He began to use his own observations in a new way, intensifying and expanding the journal writing that he had undertaken shortly after graduating from Harvard in 1837, apparently at Ralph Waldo Emerson's suggestion. In the evening, he often transferred the notes from his walks into his journal. For the rest of his life, he created long entries on the natural world in and around Concord. Thoreau was staking out a new purpose: to create a continuous, meticulous documentary record of his forays, especially pertinent 2 centuries after his birth, in an era haunted by inaction on climate change. He worried over a problem that felt personal, but also spiritual and political: how to be rigorous scientist and a poet, imaginatively connected to the vast web of natural life. In many ways, Thoreau sounds kind of like a Unitarian Universalist, but he was not. He was a Transcendentalist. Described by Immanuel Kant, in order to understand the nature of reality, one must first examine and analyze the reasoning process which governs the nature of experience. Considered an idealistic philosophy and social movement, which developed in New England around 1836 in reaction to rationalism, influenced by Romanticism, Platonism, Kantian philosophy, it taught that divinity, the stuff of God, pervades all nature and humanity, leading its members to hold progressive views on feminism and communal living, because all, regardless of identity or station, were considered divine. Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, along with Margaret Fuller, Elizabeth Palmer Peabody, Louisa May Alcott, and Emily Dickinson, were central figures of this movement. I am truly compelled by the belief that every single living being, was considered divine in nature. Imagine the respect that we would have for our planet today if we held tightly to this belief that all are divine. Can we imagine divinity in all, as if we are looking into the eyes of a god or goddess? All are sacred and important to care for in this world, regardless of species, identity, or socioeconomic station. In 1838, Ralph Waldo Emerson delivered a talk to 6 graduating members of Harvard's Divinity School. 6, that's kind of funny. He had resigned his pulpit as a Unitarian minister 6 years before, but on that hot day in July, he opened with the following words. I like to think of them as images, really. To those he referred to as the newborn bards of the Holy Ghost. He began at the beginning, and it is a bit heavy to go through, so I'm going to take my time in unfolding his words and images for you as they share some important reflection and insight about life. In this refulgent, which means brilliant, summer, it has been a luxury to draw the breath of life. The grass that grows, the buds that burst, the meadow is spotted with fire and gold in the tint of flowers. The air is full of birds and sweet with the breath of pine, the balm of Gilead, and the new hay. Night brings no gloom to the heart with its welcome shade. Through the transparent darkness, the stars pour their almost spiritual rays. Man, under them, seems a young child, and his huge globe a toy. The cool night bathes the world as with a river, prepares his eyes again for the crimson dawn. The mystery of nature was never displayed more happily. The corn and the wine have been freely dealt to all creatures. The never broken silence for which the old bounty goes forward has not yet yielded yet one word of explanation. One is constrained to respect the perfection of this world in which our senses converse. How wide, how rich, what invitation from every property it gives to every faculty of man. In its fruitful soils, in its navigable sea, in its mountains of metal and stone, in its forests of all woods, in its animals, in its chemical ingredients, in the powers and the path of light, heat, attraction, and life. It's well worth the pith and heart of great men to subdue and enjoy it. The planters, the mechanics, the inventors, the astronomers, the builders of cities, and the captains, history delights to honor. But when the mind opens and reveals the law which traverse the universe and make things what they are, then shrinks the great world at once into a mere illustration and fable of this mind. What am I? And what is? Asks the human spirit with curiosity, new kindled, but never to be quenched. Behold these outrunning laws which our imperfect apprehension can see, tend this way and that, but not come full circle. Behold these infinite relations, so like, so unlike, many, yet one. I would study, I would know, I would admire forever. These works of thought have been the entertainments of the human spirit in all ages. What am I? What is? Perfect questions for this time. Let us be advocates for bringing the earth closer to us, central to our lives, to embrace each decision that we contemplate with earth and her inhabitants primary in the discourse. I admit that with a worldwide pandemic so close at hand, I am changed. I seek a balance that brings us stability and sustainability. I do not see it on the highways of our consumeristic society, but instead I encourage us to divert onto the wooded pathways of our lives, to take it slower, take it all into our souls in a manner that will evolve us with regard to the why, what, and who that we are becoming. The way that we have lived is not the way that we should continue to live. I am called, and I invite you to go deeper into what will heal our times, our people, our policies, our planet. Poverty and wealth as a dichotomy of our times can no longer remain the status quo. Profit, industry, and energy can and must be in line with our hopes, our goals, and commitments to survive and to thrive far and far into the future. Because ultimately, we are not trying to save our environment for just us. We are trying to save it for those who are yet to be born. Some of you know our children have been focusing on the state of our planet this month, led by the moniker shared by a member of our religious exploration class, Matthew Rosenblum. We had a conversation with Matthew, and he said to both Jenna and I, nature needs our help. In 2019, we were inspired by the likes of Greta Thunberg and Jane Goodall, along with Al Gore, Pope Francis, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Lady Gaga, one of our youngest among us, Matthew Rosenblum. So many of us are armchair advocates for our planet and a healthy environment. Are we compelled yet to go that extra mile? Are we willing to embrace our collective dignity and join together in small and significant ways to save all the beings on this planet? Because ultimately the planet will survive climate change, but at this rate, humankind will not. This lockdown is just a bit of what we have to look forward to if temperatures continue to rise and storms, fire, and drought continue to rage. Before all of this, excuse me, nurses, doctors, First responders took center stage as the real heroes over the last month and a half. But before them, the real heroes were pollinators. They were proclaimed to be the most important creatures on this planet. As we know it, we need them. We need them to help us pollinate plants and for food and gardening. And we don't want to lose our pollinators. We need them. Pollinators are the real heroes that we need in our fight against climate change and food security. They could save us all. But less weeds and perfect grass poison the pollinators to the brink of extinction. Our world has changed so much since Thoreau and Emerson walked these ways. What is happening now is changing us even more. The reality of our vulnerability in the face of a pandemic has woken humanity up to our very mortality, delivered in the form of tiny enemy combatants dispersed by a cough and or sneeze. We armed ourselves with hand sanitizer, soap and water. Later came face masks, thermometers, gloves, and lockdown. This is the level of commitment to survival that we need to sustain moving forward in the very real challenge and battle with climate change. I've been thinking quite a bit about the contrast between COVID-19 and climate change since January, wondering about their connection. I've wondered if the planet is working in concert with nature to endeavor to right the imbalance that humanity and consumerism really has ultimately caused over the generations. Our ancestors lauded progress as the right thing for humankind's survival, but too much of a good thing can just be too much. I want to meander for a moment, as I like to do, share an exchange from a movie, The Matrix, set far into the future, where the artificial intelligence construct Smith shares his thoughts with his rebel captor or prisoner, Morpheus. He explains, "I like to share a revelation that I have had during my time here. It came to me when I tried to classify your species." Morpheus was human. "I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows that same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague." That statement from a movie in 1999 completely outraged me. But over the years, the virus premise has stuck with me. I've been called back to it over and over again, especially more recently. Are we a plague on this planet? And if we are, how can we change our way of being in order to save ourselves and every other living being who is falling towards extinction as I speak? How can we learn to lean more into balance? This Earth Day week and moving forward, hopefully every day for the rest of our lives, is a time for us to wonder a little outside of our own personal sphere of experience and reality and ask important questions about the state of our planet and the health and well-being of all the inhabitants who live on it. What is our place in the scheme of things, and how can we move our world towards a place that is more sustainable? How are the overpopulated and consumeristic ways that we grew up with alterable? How are we able to course correct in the short term in order for all of us, the pollinators included, to ultimately survive in the long term? I was compelled by an opinion piece in The Hill that drew a comparison about short and long range health challenges that humanity faces. It was shared, "COVID-19 and climate change are real but different health emergencies. The novel coronavirus is a public health emergency caused by the new virus COVID-19, which has rapidly spread through communities across the world. Conversely, climate change is a slow motion public health emergency, exacerbated by health crisis associated with sudden events such as extreme weather and wildfire. Both of these emergencies are of an environmental origin, and both point to something that every student of public health learns. The environment is one of the factors that affect our health. While the window of opportunity to limit may be the next few weeks for COVID-19 and the next few years for climate change, both will cause hundreds of thousands to millions of deaths worldwide unless urgent action is taken. We all have a role to play. COVID-19 and its lethal impacts are a wake-up call to pay attention to scientists' warning on climate change. The climate health emergency may not yet be upon us as visibly as COVID-19, but the need for action is just as urgent. The writers of this opinion piece was Dr. Mona Sarfati, and she is a family medical physician and executive director of the Medical Society Consortium for Climate and Health based at George Mason University, and Richard Carmona. You may know him. He's the co-author. He was the 17th Surgeon General of the United States, appointed by President George W. Bush. He currently teaches at the University of Arizona. Nature needs our help, our voice, our vote. All of the species on this planet are interdependently connected, and we depend on our environment to remain healthy and in balance in order for our very survival. We have arrived at our wake-up call. Will we answer? Will we arise? We have a very basic question to answer today. Who or what is the virus plague that we are battling? Is our enemy in a petri dish, in a cough or a sneeze, in an unclean hand, or does it stem from the greed, ignorance, reckless behavior, or lack of compassion that exists in this world? I have to ask. I'm compelled to ask. Why, if the scientific community is warning us so fervently about climate change, are our appointed leaders of the moment rolling back protections for the environment? There is a simple answer. Greed and the power of industry is lining the pockets of politicians. They are choosing quick cash to turn a blind eye, and they have done so for generations. Profit over people, and for us to survive, it has to stop. So I say to you, dear friends, as we sit in our homes and we stay safe from this pandemic, which we should continue to do regardless of what anyone says, let us also think about how we got here, this place of imbalance with regard to the nature and the planet. This is our time to think about what it will take to divert from the old familiar, arriving at a place of better balance. Let Thoreau, Emerson, and our children inspire us to find our way out of this mess and demand more from those who would lead us. Thoreau, committed to life, ventured out every single day in order to study and find the answers in the woods to challenges of his time. He pondered questions about life and love and divinity and humanity's true uncorrupted nature. It is our time now. Let us be the change. When it comes time to ensure our right to vote in November, let us expect and demand change by being prepared to vote for our lives, the lives of our children, for all the species that rely and reside on our most gracious Mother Earth. I invite you to take a moment in silent meditation and prayer. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. First Parish is financially sustained by annual pledges, fundraisers, and donations of time and treasure. And with this, our weekly offering. Please be generous if you are able. The online offering is available in two ways: by clicking the screen, or a new feature that we've been working on. You can now share your offering via text. Please refer to the order of worship for instructions on how to continue to support the work of First Parish. We thank you for your generosity. Time has come to extinguish our chalice. Please join me in saying our extinguishing chalice words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for gathering with us online this morning. While we are meeting online, we will be offering the opportunity to gather to share milestones and announcements directly after, as is our tradition, the postlude. After the music stops, please click the coffee hour button below this screen next to the order of worship and the offering buttons, and you will be moved into a Zoom room for coffee hour. Good and loving people, our time of wondering and worship has come to an end. So I share some words from Starhawk with you. Earth Mother, Star Mother, you're called by 1,000 names. May all remember we are cells in your body and we dance together. We are the grain and the loaf that sustains us each day as you are patient with our struggles to learn. So shall we be patient with ourselves and each other. We are radiant light and sacred dark, the balance. You are the embrace that heartens and the freedom beyond fear. Within you we are born, we grow, live, and die. You bring us around the circle to rebirth. Within us, may you dance forever. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.